What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JohnnyVTV Live. Honestly, I'm still very much in mourning, but the show must go on. Join with me, as always, to my right, Nick Durst. Bottom, who really just wants to stick it in my face. Pause. Kyle Donnelly. What's good, boys? How we doing?
Oh,
doing
sorry,
good
guys.
after Julio Jones.
I'm just playing a little video games over here. I got Madden 09 going in the background, so sorry for all distracted here.
You couldn't get anything more updated?
It was NFL head coach, not Madden.
Bro, it doesn't matter, bro. Like, come on, really get your head out of the gutter. Let's go. Get your head in the game. Listen.
Come on, Kyle. Anyway, Johnny, how you doing? You look a little hungover here.
I'm not
the end of the Falcons era of your fandom.
I mean, really.
I'm grieving. This is a process. It's a grieving process. I'm not happy. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it right away. But wait, if I'm not mistaken, I think we have. I think we got a guy backstage, right?
Bring him out.
Bring him out. All right, everybody. We're very excited to have Kevin Davis, big-time sports betting writer. And I say this, I don't take this lightly. I'm 100% serious. I follow a lot of betting writers on Twitter, on different websites. This guy is the most money writer I've seen. His picks are filth this year. Let's bring him out. Bring him out. Kevin Davis, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad that I'm one of the most killer sports betting guys this year. Obviously, we still have 6 months left for me to blow all my money, but let's hope that doesn't happen.
Man, you got to be hitting at what? Close to a 60% clip on your picks this year?
No, but I also bet a lot of underdogs. So if I'm hitting a 60% clip, I'm really worried that I'm on the tail end of a good luck.
Well, usually I think like 53, 54% is what you have to be on your picks, right? To be on the ROI, like to be a positive
if you're betting
ROI.
Spreads, yes.
Okay,
that's why I like baseball. You go for the money line. And, of course, player props as well.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I am profitable. But, yeah, I mean, NFL, forget about it if you want to win long-term. There's so much liquidity in the market, it's hard to win. College football, I do pretty well at because I research all the unusual schools. That's really the key. You're not going to win betting SEC. You're going to win betting the Sun Belt. In baseball, there's tons of player props, and there's also a low house advantage. You set up 20 different accounts. The next thing you know, they only have a 1% advantage. Then, I have my own models, put my own numbers out there. So that breaks through that advantage. And also, I bet the day before the games, before the lines move.
Yes, I'm very intrigued to hear all of that, and we're going to get into it. But before we talk baseball, something near and dear to my heart, it shook the sports world, it shook the NFL world, and I'm honestly sick about it. But nonetheless, we have to talk about it. Julio Jones is officially a Tennessee Titan. What in the you-know-what? The Falcons received a second-round pick in 2022 and a 2023 fourth-round pick. First off, let me say this. I am disgusted. I'm done with this loser franchise, this organization that is just so underwhelming and just doesn't know how to get it done. They literally got fleeced. And then you got NFL Network and ESPN and everybody trying to make it seem like they actually got a square deal. My ass, they got a square deal. They got absolutely hosed. And if I'm not mistaken, they're still picking up Julio Jones's $15 million plus cap hit in 2022. You know something? This is what we're going to do right now.
No more Falcons.
I'm done. The Atlanta Falcons, after 20 years of support, you're finished. I want nothing to do with you anymore. I still got a lot of love for Matt Ryan, for Calvin Ridley. I want to see Kyle Pitts. I love Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones. But the Atlanta Falcons are dead to me. Absolutely dead. But, boys, how are we feeling about this trade?
It's a lose now move for the Falcons. And Titans are going to get Julio Jones. Is it going to make a difference? I don't think so. I think them and the Colts are still in the same boat. They'll be fighting it out for the division there, around 10 wins, 11 wins. Neither team in that division is going to be winning the Super Bowl. But the Titans need help defensively. The Falcons needed help defensively, and they just swap over wide receivers. And, I don't think there was any way anybody was going to go first for Julio Jones. That's what you saw. So you get the second, you get the fourth. That's a middle party here. We'll ask Kyle here, the big Titans fan, how happy he is.
Oh, I'm ecstatic, buddy. Grin to grin. Shit-eating grin on my face. That is right, sir. I couldn't be happier. This is Christmas morning for me as a football fan. That being said, now you have A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry in the backfield, and Julio Jones on the outside. It's just so new to me. It's such a dream. I never even thought it'd be real. That being
like
said,
something that would happen in a video game, right?
exactly. That's exactly what would happen, Rick. That being said, you got grown men everywhere in that Titans offense, and Ryan Tannehill is going to have himself a time there. That being said, they need help desperately on the defensive side of the ball. Please go figure that out. They need to do that, or else it's all gonna be for nothing.
You know what?
You look upset.
Of course I'm upset. What are you kidding me? Listen, here's the bottom line. I've said this numerous times the last 2 weeks. Nick, I came on your show yesterday, and I talked about this. What they did was contradicting. If they came out before the draft and said, listen, we're trading Julio, he's gone. Fine. You're telling me you're rebuilding. You didn't trade him. You could have got something before the draft. Teams are always desperate and always overpay to get a guy like Julio Jones before the draft. So you could have got a first rounder, maybe more then. But no, what you do is Arthur Smith, you say, hey, we're in win now mode. Fine. I love it. I thought the Falcons had a very short window left with Matt Ryan, Julio anyway. So you know what? Go for it. Why, you might as well. Draft Kyle Pitts 4th overall, a tight end. Now, he's a unicorn, but let me ask you a question. Is drafting a tight end 4th overall a winning move, a win now move? Absolutely. Is that a rebuilding move? No way. Okay, cool. Then you go and trade Julio Jones. On top of that, you already had Matt Ryan extended. You didn't draft a quarterback. Now you don't know what you're doing. You half-assed this whole process. But that's what the Atlanta Falcons do. And not only that, they got a Jello Cup and a carton of Marlboros for the best receiver in football, one of the best of all time, a future first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, are you kidding me? That's disgusting. That's unforgivable. We have two incompetents at the head of the show, running the show, in Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. I don't like it. It doesn't make any sense. They would be lucky to win 6 games each of the first 3 seasons. In my opinion, I've said this many times, they can rebuild all they want, but they're going to be like Mark Jackson of the Warriors and Mike Singletary of the Niners. They will not be around for a second contract to see the fruits that they bore for a rebuild. Not happening. This is stupid. I don't like it. You know what? Make up your mind. You're going to rebuild, go all in. You're going to go win now, go all in. You half-assed it, and you're going to pay the price. That's what's going to happen.
What's Vegas saying about their win total now post Julio Jones trade?
Kev, what are they saying, baby?
Let's see. Because I'm here in New Jersey, of course, where we got the most mobile apps.
It's got to be. So it was, I want to say it was like 7.5 before. I would say it's probably like 6.5 now.
Where are you at in New Jersey, Kevin?
You also want to check the juice to see if they're juicing in one direction or another. Like, let's say a bunch of people are betting under, you may get good value on the over. Mm-hmm. Let's see what it's at. So DraftKings has the Falcons at 7.5. Even juice on both sides, as in minus 110 on both sides. FanDuel. Volume's not loud enough?
No. I said that was the under 7.5 easily.
All right, so under 7.5 easily. Now they play the Saints twice. Saints are going to be rebuilding. What if Tom Brady gets hurt? They could be, then they play Tampa Bay twice. It could happen. He's an old man. Players get hurt in football all the time. But really, in a 16-game season, you're going to have a lot of variance. It's not going to be like a sport like basketball or baseball where they're playing lots of times. All it takes is a few injuries and then a missed field goal here and there. But, certainly wide receiver, in my opinion, at least for college football, is one of the most overrated positions. I think they're pretty replaceable. I would worry more if, a bunch of their offensive line was decimated, or they didn't have a good quarterback, or they didn't have good defensive players. But let's say you place, Julio Jones with, a younger, faster, more agile player who's maybe not as good. Wide receiver is not one of the highest priority position groups. It's certainly one of the most high profile because they're incredible to watch and their name get called, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the Falcons are stripped.
I hear what you're saying. It's just watching how they play. They don't have a good line. They lost their center, Alex Mack. He goes to San Francisco. Their defense has been a train wreck pretty much every year since Matt Ryan came in. And they just find ways to lose games. That's the biggest thing. We're not talking about a team that has historically found ways to win games. Like, for example, the best case, and it's always Matt Ryan's fault, and I can't stand that. I think that narrative is ridiculous. But just, for example, last year against the Lions, Matt Ryan tells Todd Gurley, listen, get the first down, get down, don't score. Okay, got it. What does he do? Gets the handoff. He goes in, scores. They go up 6 points with, I think it was 50 seconds left. Now the Falcons defense had to defend 90 yards. So the Lions had a real long drive. What happens? The Atlanta Falcons defense, in under a minute, allows Matthew Stafford and the Lions, without Kenny Golladay, by the way, to go 90 yards and get a game-winning touchdown. That's just like the kind of thing that they're accustomed to. Now, I'll say this. I love Julio. I wish nothing but the best for him, and I don't think it's his fault. I think he wasn't wanted there. I think they didn't make any real effort. And now the Titans, who I actually rooted for. I root for because I love King Henry. I love A.J. Brown. They have 3 of my 4 favorite skill players now, minus Papa DK Metcalf up in Seattle. So, there was worse places in my fandom that he could have went. But I don't like it. I think it's bad. Like I said, they half-assed it. They didn't know what they were going to do, whether it was going to be a rebuild or a win-now move, and they completely hurt themselves. And I think they're going to be paying the price for it for years to come.
Well, when you're looking at a number like 7.5, it's going to be an extra game this season, so 17 games. They can go over, have 8 wins, and still have a losing record.
That is true.
You're betting that they're going to be even worse than the bare minimum to have a losing record. Plus, Carolina, it's not like they're going to be the toughest team. So that's, 4 of their games right there, Carolina and New Orleans. And then you mentioned that Matt Stafford example. I mean, that's negative variance. If that didn't happen, they would have won that game.
John, what do you think about
how
playing
often we see
that
teams
extra
be good
home
one year
game?
be bad the next?
I'm sorry, Kev?
Look how often we see teams be good one year and be bad the next, and vice versa.
Johnny, what about that extra game being played in London for your Falcons? Are you happy about that?
Oh, by the way, yeah. So now all the AFC teams this year, which the 17-game season I think is idiotic. I hate it. And listen, as somebody who loves fantasy, loves betting, and loves vegging in front of the TV for 12 hours on a Sunday, I hate the 17 games for many reasons. We won't get into it. But now the AFC teams get an extra home game, which means the NFC teams get to play more away games. But Atlanta, the geniuses that they are, volunteered to go play in London against the Jets and forfeit a home game. And I got to tell you, they're probably going to lose that one to the Jets. They're going to play in London, where teams usually don't play as sharp as they normally do. The time change and, you're out of your element. You're in not only a new city, but you're in a different country. It's just, I don't like it. I think it's idiotic. They'll probably lose to the Jets. But nevertheless, we have voiced our opinions here on one said Julio Jones. I wish him the best. Honestly, I think he's going to have a very good season. It's a much downgraded from Ryan Tannehill because he's playing with Matt Ryan, but we'll see. Let's move on to baseball. This is what we're all about. In my new home city of Tampa, Florida, those Tampa Bay Rays, the best team in baseball. Kevin, is this team better than the 2020 version that was in the World Series?
Well, they haven't played as well as the 2020 team, but, as a whole, I think they're a better team. Like that 2020 team, did a better job. But I feel more confident about betting on this team going forward because I think they really put their pieces together well. Last season was a good trial run for them. I think their bullpens played a little bit better than last year. Glasnow's having even better year. I mean, he's having more strikeouts, per 9 innings than Nolan Ryan ever had. I mean, he's not pitching a full 9 innings, but like last year when he can barely get him on the mound for more than 4 innings, now this season he's averaging 6 1/3. And that's the real moneymaker right there, because if you get him out there for 6 innings, you only have to rely on that bullpen for 3.
It's got to be the hair, right? I think that's probably it. It might be the hair.
Well, I don't think the hair helped out Cam Newton.
It's got to be the haircut and beautiful, feathered and lethal.
Nick, what do you think, buddy? You think this team is better than last year's?
If they're going to be better than last year's, that means they're going to win the World Series, right? So if that's the question. And I don't think they're going to win the World Series this year, just because it is so hard to get back to the World Series after you lose the World Series. I think they're a playoff team. We'll talk about some other teams in the East later on in this episode, but the East is looking really good right now. We'll see, how long these Red Sox stick along here. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get back to the World Series, just because I don't know if they're going to win the division. But if they win the division, then they have a chance at the very least to be getting to the ALCS, and that could put them up into good shape there. But I don't know if I believe in the White Sox right now. They're playing unbelievable. We'll see what happens there. I do think that we're going to be looking at another NL winner this year, though. There's a lot of variables at this point. Too early for me to say, in June here, what I'm thinking long term for a team. But the Rays always find a way. Look, they find for the first time in like 8 to 10 years, they let a pitcher go a complete game, shuts down the Yankees. So we'll see. They're always changing their philosophies. Obviously, right now, they're not missing Blake Snell, but the regular season, they don't really need to miss Blake Snell. But I think they'll miss him in the playoffs, although they mishandled that in the World Series pretty bad last year.
Kyle, what do you think about Moneyball 2.0?
Moneyball 2.0. Well, obviously being in the same division, I'm not the greatest fan of it, but competition, breeds better play. So, whatever. They still got to get us in first place. Right now, we're doing okay. I'm happy with what the Red Sox are doing. Sell Matt Barnes, get rid of him. You got Ottavino now, who seems to be moving into that closer role for them. Please get rid of Matt Barnes and get him for what you can. That being said, we'll see what happens with the Rays. I like them as the number 2 contender right now because the Yankees you can't really trust right now. That being said, also Baltimore's a bottom feeder, and I mean, what are you going to get? I mean, Toronto. We'll see. We'll see about Toronto. We don't know them yet. Their track record isn't, very proven.
Listen, that's all fair points. It's still, there's still a lot of baseball to be played. It's only early June. We're going to touch a little bit more on the Rays later because that stud, my preseason pick, the AL Cy Young, Tyler Glasnow, it's got to be the hair cotton. It's got to be. The guy is just disgusting. And the biggest thing with him is always health. But we will touch on him later. Let's flip it over to the NL and talk about one of the most untalked about stars in MLB right now. That is one Jesse Winker to the moon. He's batting .350, good for second in the league. 17 home runs, tied for second. 37 RBIs, tied for 22nd. And a 1077 OPS, good for second. Listen, why is this guy not being talked about in the NL MVP conversation, especially when all the other contenders are on teams that are not really that good? Kevin, enlighten me, please.
Well, first of all, Mets are in first place and Jacob deGrom's on them, and he's considered a contender. So I would definitely disagree with that assessment. It's kind of hard to look at MVP 60 games out. There's not other than Jacob deGrom, there's not really one player where you say, wow, if this team didn't have him, they'd be screwed. Look at the Dodgers. They have all these great players. A couple of them get hurt. And, they still are almost as good as last year's team.
But then you look at Jesse Winker, the Reds, right? The Reds, they're actually getting hot. They're heating up. They took it to the Cardinals. They beat them in a 4-game set. They swept them. Unbelievable, by the way, how bad the Cardinals are doing right now. But in any case, like, not only is Jesse Winker unbelievable right now, his running mate was one of my favorite players. The guy is literally breathes extra base hits. He gets out of bed in the morning, he's got an extra base hit. That's Nick Castellanos. And, you can make a case for him as well. Obviously, it's too early, but I just, even on the way too early ballots, because you know how a lot of the sports writers like to bring it up and talk about it. Buster Olney left him off the ballot. So it's Acuna, it was Chris Bryant, DeGrom. I'm personally, my thing is with DeGrom, I love him. He's the best pitcher in baseball. But my opinion when it comes to pitchers winning MVPs, I think DeGrom would have to have a typical DeGrom season, which, you almost could pencil him in for, knock wood, if he doesn't get hurt. But then all the other position players have to do basically squat. So that's where it comes from. Let me rephrase and say, out of all the position players in the NL, Winker.
What if DeGrom continues to bat 350 and has an ERA under 1? I mean, it's really hard to deny him that.
It is. Listen, I'm not discrediting it at all. I'm just saying, like, if one of these guys in the NL is batting 310 and hitting 40 home runs with 100 RBIs, and let's say it's Acuna, let's say he bats 300, puts out 35 home runs, steals 30 bases, has 90 RBIs, and even the Braves win like 85, 86 games. I mean, you're going to tell me he's not going to get the nod of MVP over DeGrom? I don't know.
So another thing I'll say about the NL, besides the fact that, a lot of people aren't going to vote for a pitcher to begin with. If you're looking at position players, the NL position player with the highest WAR is Max Muncy of the Dodgers. I mean, he's not their best player, but right now this season he has produced the most wins for them.
And he's been hurt.
I'd also put up there too. AL, I think the conversation's easier. I think people think it should be Ohtani, but I can't see how it's not Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
We are in 1,000,000% agreement. We had a whole segment on that last week. I don't know how you shirk off Vladdy Jr. He's just the kid's a different breed. Like he's different, man. It's just anybody who watches him play knows he's got a different swing. We had a great guest on a couple weeks ago, Andrew Cayley from Covers, and he's a big Blue Jays fan. And that was when I brought it up. I'm like, because he also loves Ohtani, and I'm like, listen, like I don't know how it can't be Vlad. He goes, listen, anytime you watch him, the sound off the bat is just different. You watch him, he's got different swings. He doesn't have just one swing, strikeout or home run. He's got, I'm going to hit it to right field right now. I'm going to hit it to left center. I'm going to hit it over the right center wall. Like wherever he wants to go with the ball, he could. And he's unbelievable, man. So I agree with you. Vlad's got to be by far the AL leader right now. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, right now he is. Well, let's see. Other than Mike Trout, you rarely see an MVP come from a team that is not in the playoffs. So, we'll see what happens with the Blue Jays. It's going to be close. They're going to be battling it out. But right now, just like Kevin said, 60 games into the season, we can't really say things because everything's going to change. How many times have we had people? How many times have we seen people have a ridiculous first half for the season, and then they get hurt or they go into slump, but like an 0-for-30 slump after the All-Star break, and that could be it. And you don't know, somebody else can go heat up like crazy right now. I wouldn't rule out, let's say, Altuve, if he carries the Astros to the postseason in the second half, he would get some consideration. But right now, it's tough. It's tough to say. As the candidates right now, NL side, I think you got to consider Tatis. He's missed a lot of games, but he's still at the top of categories in home runs and RBIs, and he's making steals. However, do you consider how terrible he has been defensively? He leads the league in errors, I think, with 15 at shortstop. So, does the MVP have to be a total package? Usually it's an offensive award, just like you see in the NFL. It goes to the quarterback. DeGrom's definitely a candidate. Those are the top guys. Acuna would be a candidate, but then again, it's Acuna would get it, but then it means the Mets probably are not making the playoffs because the Braves would be winning the division. AL, Guerrero right now is the front runner. But again, a lot of this will depend and see how these teams shake out and how they are going to make the playoffs or whatnot. But I will point out with the Blue Jays is I wonder how much Guerrero has benefited from playing in minor league baseball stadiums as his home stadium. And I wonder if the voters would be impacted by that, saying, oh, well, he's not in like a big league stadium, it's a little smaller park. And also, he over the last 3 years, he played a lot of games in Dunedin Far and a lot of games in Buffalo, because that's where he was. That's where he dominated. So we'll see what happens there. But maybe, he was hurt, whatever. But I think the George Springer signing has really helped Guerrero big time. I wouldn't be surprised if Springer has helped Guerrero out and spoke with him and helped him, in a sense, bring his game to the next level.
I wanted to bring something up about Guerrero is that if you look at his neutralized stats, weighted runs created plus, he actually leads the majors with 195, meaning he produces just as many runs as almost two, average players, even when you take out the stadium effects. So, if you were to weigh it against Coors Field, Citi Field, the Trop, he would be the best pound for pound offensive player so far this year. And of course, your boy Jesse Winker is number 2.
Kevin, let me ask you something. Where do you
defensively, just like Guerrero is?
Where do you find all these advanced stats? Because all your articles I read, you have a lot of these advanced numbers and these analytics, and I could tell you're very analytical. And I'm always curious on where you find stuff like that.
Yeah, so that was on Fangraphs.com. That's a free service. Baseball Reference is a great site. They have the best game logs. I also pay for Baseball Prospectus data, which is worth the $60 I spend on it every year. Especially, they have the best preseason projections, I think, of anybody. So, I think the most important thing is, because I built my own model, is to have neutralized stats. Yeah. And then you put in the stadium effects. So then I put in my model, okay, they're playing at Coors Field. They should score 36% more runs than average. They're playing at Citi Field. They should score 7% runs less. And of course, you bring up the Blue Jays Stadium. That's a hitter's park. That's 10% more runs should be scored there versus the average ballpark.
You talking about Dunedin, or are you talking about Rogers Center?
Actually, both. But Salem Field in Buffalo, which I've actually been to. Have friends in Buffalo. Haven't been down to any of the Florida baseball stadiums yet. Would love to go to the Trop. I was able to survive Olympic Stadium in the Expos. So I'm not completely allergic to turf, although I'm guessing they don't have the French Canadian food down in Tampa, but they have other goodies.
I'll tell you what, man, you come to Tampa, you let me know. We'll hit a Rays game.
I'm in.
I'm only 20 minutes from the stadium. I actually went when they played the Yankees. It's cool, man. Like it's different because I've never been to an indoor baseball stadium, but it's a cool experience. You got your bars around there. You got like coming in, just the whole scenery is very interesting. It's funny actually because especially because it's on my list of plays for tonight. I was thinking about going to the game after this when with Tyler Glasnow pitching because, bro, it's only $34 a ticket to see Glasnow pitch. I mean, come on, man. That's almost free baseball to watch this guy pitch. But yeah, man, whenever you're down in Tampa, you let JohnnyVTV know.
I haven't been to a baseball game since before the pandemic. I'm just writing all the time, but I'd love to go. I'm honestly watching them all the time, but while the games go on, I'm working on the next day.
Absolutely. So now it's a good lead in here because you just mentioned Fernando Tatis a short while ago. The San Diego Padres, are they hitting their stride a little bit? They're 37-25, second in the NL West. Where do we see this team down the road? Do we see them as the preseason monster that was good enough to be in the Final Four and ultimately give any other AL team or even their own division rival, the Dodgers, a run for their money to win the title?
So, they have to make the playoffs. And if they don't win the division, they make it as a wild card. And I think they probably don't win the division, but, they'll make the wild card. And with their pitching, I have a hard time seeing how they don't win the wild card unless, the Mets, for example, aren't leading the division anymore and they're a second wild card team. Then I would worry about them against DeGrom in that wild card game. So let's say they make it as a wild card, then they have to play the Dodgers first round. And I don't think that's going to go so well, but let's say it does go well. Then, okay. then they'll probably win the NL pennant, but they'll have to go against the Rays, the Astros. I think the Astros right now are the best AL team. And, the best team talent-wise in the AL East is the Yankees, but they're not, producing at the level they should. So in terms of potential production, they're the best team. In terms of actual production, the Rays are the best team. The Red Sox should fade, although if they don't fade, I don't really mind because I bet them preseason 20-1 to win the division. But that's what happens. I'll bet anything at the right price. But, it's going to be difficult for any team to win the World Series. This has a betting angle. I would recommend, in general, not betting on World Series futures because if you add up the break-even odds for every single World Series team, these betting sites are going to have a 40-50% advantage. Whereas if you're betting a money line and you're going, let's say you only used one site and you're betting the money line, then, they only have a 3% advantage. If you have like 20 different apps, they're only going to have a 1% advantage. So the question is, if you're betting $100 blindly, would you rather lose $1 or would you rather lose 40?
That's a fair point. What do you think, Kyle?
I like the Padres in the West. They're loaded. I think they're led by Tatis, who's a great leader for them. That being, I really think this could be their year. Honestly, for the first time in a while since they had Tony Gwynn back on the team back in the 90s. Let's see if their pitching holds up. I think they can do it, but obviously they got to go through the Dodgers. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a long ways away. There's 162 games.
Can't forget about the Giants. I mean, right now they got to go through the Giants. So,
the Giants have been playing hot too. That's true.
Have you ever built anything out of balsa wood before?
I don't know what that is.
So balsa wood's like this cheap wood that you can make structures with, and it's nice. So the San Francisco Giants kind of remind me of that because, they have some solid veterans, but every single one of these veteran pitchers they have is kind of like at their peak ability. So in order for them to like stay up where they are, and of course get past the Dodgers, they have to keep relying on these great performances from, Buster Olney. I'm not Buster Olney, but Sir Posey going back to MVP form. He's currently playing some of the best baseball of his life. Kevin Gausman, Alex Wood. They could make moves at the trade deadline, but I'm going to go on the limb and say we're not really going to see any big trades this year because I think ownership is preparing for some sort of a strike or lockout next year. And they want to, hold out so they can kind of manipulate salaries and play players less than they should.
Right.
I hope I'm wrong and we have some action.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have it. We'll have a strike. I think the big name to be moved is probably going to be Chris Bryant if the Cubs are not in first place. And it's because they're definitely not re-signing him. As you mentioned, the owners tried to manipulate him. He's out of there. And I think Johnny's guy, Jesse Winker, is going to be dealt. This guy's going to be a free agent soon, and he's outperforming. And the Reds, they're a game under 500. I expect them to be much more down. Those are two names I think being moved. But I think Bryant's the big guy that's going to get moved. But at this point, especially with the two wild card teams, everybody's still in it. There's 20 teams in it. There's maybe like three sellers right now at this point, which is the Orioles and the Twins, definitely, and the Pirates. But really, what are the big names coming off of there? So there's really not going to be too many blockbusters, as you said, Kevin, other than potentially Chris Bryant, depending on where the Cubs are in the standings. Right now, they're at the top, so I don't think they would trade Bryant at this point. But they have to weigh, are we going to be able to get to the postseason? Okay, yes. But are we going to be able to beat the Mets, the Padres, the Dodgers? Probably not. But to your point about the Padres, or really any team, if they don't want to be in the wild card game if the Mets are in the wild card game because they are not going to be scoring many runs against Jacob deGrom. I don't care. We saw deGrom shut down the Padres last weekend. We're going to see him shut them down on the Friday night. Nobody wants anything with the Mets in the postseason just because of the pitching, and we'll see as far as the Mets are concerned. What's really going to happen with them. They have McNeil starting a rehab assignment this weekend. Guillorme coming back soon. Almora. They really got to get Conforto back. They need J.D. Davis back because they got to have the offense at full force. I don't know if they'll. I really don't know if Syndergaard's going to pitch this year. I know he's out till at least August now. You got to hope Carrasco comes back at some point. If not, then the Mets, they're going to have to be in the market for a starting pitcher because you can't go into the postseason with DeGrom, Stroman, Walker, and then Peterson or Lucchesi. That's not going to work out for you in the series.
Well, I don't know if the Mets are going to get him, but I definitely think that Max Scherzer is probably on the market.
An underperforming Nationals team. I actually projected them to be much higher because I liked their roster. I honestly thought that they were going to not only make the playoffs, but they could have snuck in and actually made it to the NLCS against the Mets. And the reason I say that is because fully healthy, coming into the season before any injuries happened, the rotation was maybe the best in baseball. You had Scherzer, you had Strasburg, you had Corbin, you had Lester. I mean, Patrick Corbin just completely forgot how to pitch. He's like almost the next Rick Ankiel at this point. Their lineup was pretty good with Soto, Trey Turner. Soto's been kind of hit or miss. Trey Turner honestly looks like the MVP of not only that team, but he's entering the conversation quietly as an NL MVP candidate. But honestly, the rest of their lineup has been kind of disappointing. Like I thought Josh Bell would come in, maybe be a 30 home run guy, 100 RBIs. He was in the All-Star game. You know, they haven't lived up to it, and if they don't turn it around in a rather quick fashion, I do think Max Scherzer is going to go to the highest bidder to try and secure a World Series berth for some lucky team.
Maybe the Astros.
It's going to be an AL team, I would think. Definitely not. The Mets would be a great fit there, but I don't think the Nationals would have traded the division. So Dodgers would be awful for baseball. I would say, the Astros should look for pitchers, but how could you rule out the Yankees trying to make a splash to try to get themselves to the postseason?
That being said, is there anybody like in the Phillies organization or the Brewers pitching staff, any of those arms you see could be moved?
Well, I think the Phillies and the Brewers are competing. But let's say theoretically they stop competing. I mean, Jake Wheeler's having the best year of his career. He's almost having as good of a year as DeGrom and Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, Zach Wheeler hit free agency 1 year too early because Steve Cohen would have absolutely signed.
Well, somebody of that ilk that's toward the bottom that has a higher end rotation guy.
I wouldn't necessarily say he's higher end, but Tyler Anderson, I think, of the Pirates is a great trade candidate. He's on a 1 year deal, and he's relatively decent. I don't know if anyone's going to go for JT Brubaker of the Pirates as well. He's in his second year, so teams can get a lot of control for him. Maybe the Pirates are going to hold on because maybe they think they can win eventually. But he's doing relatively decently, and you have some control with him.
He's on the bump tonight versus Walker Buehler. Pirates home to the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm on the Pirates.
Money line?
You know it.
Look at this guy. Let's find some value. Let's get a little plus money, and let's hammer a nice fat underdog.
Now, I was hoping for some good value on the alternative plus 2.5 run line. But sadly, I can't get it down to that minus 150 level I wanted. It's been kind of slipping there at minus 165. I simulate the games 10,000 times to tell me which is better, money line or run line.
Do you follow the money line, do you follow the model to a T? Like, does the $15 make that much of a difference to you, whether you're going to take it or not?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, sometimes if the number is way off, I'll say, okay, do I have all the data in there correctly? Because it's not like you set a model and you're done. You have to make sure you're weighing everything properly and you have the right player starting. Like, for example, just before we got on, I saw that the Nationals lineup, and I thought they were going to use somebody else's DH, and then I found out they were going to use Ryan Zimmerman. So just them using Ryan Zimmerman, adds 1.5 percentage points to the Nationals' chance of winning tonight. And I laid a bet down on the Nationals plus 215. Now, obviously, Tampa should win, but the break-even odds at plus 215 are so long that it's worth taking a flyer on the Nats.
Absolutely. Kevin, we've been dying for this all day. Take us through Kevin Davis's philosophy on how to win at baseball betting.
So I use a model, and basically I put every single player in there and say if they played a full season with this lineup and this pitching, how many runs would they allow and how many runs would they score, and what would their win percentage be? I take the win percentage for the other team, and then from that I have a formula that tells me what the money line odds should be after home field advantage. But let's say you don't have all this stuff. Ultimately, pitching is the most important. You want to evaluate pitching. You don't want to just look at how many runs they give up. You want to look at how many runs should they have given up? How much would you expect them to give up based on the stadiums that they pitched in? Like, what if somebody gave up 1 run but had 9 hits? I mean, eventually that luck is going to catch up to them, and they're going to have a really bad game. Or what if somebody like Alex Wood, has been so-so their career, and then they're having a career year? I mean, when are they going to have, some sort of regressing to the mean, as well as, what sort of players are having awful years like Louis Castillo, and when are they going to start pitching well? So that's the best thing you can do. You can also chase injury news. Obviously, Mike Trout being out, everyone's going to know the effect of that. But the thing I mentioned with the Nationals, looking at these NL teams and who they're going to use at DH is very helpful. Strikeout props, I would say, if you're not using a model, are the easiest to beat. Even though they have the highest house advantage, you want to measure how long you think the pitcher is going to pitch and how strikeout prone the other team. And of course, the how long the other pitcher is supposed to pitch factor also depends on how badly or great they do, because they could pitch bad and still have more energy and they get taken out of the game.
How did your formula fare last year with your Korean baseball organization bets?
So Korean baseball, I hit about 4.3% return, which I think is pretty damn good. Taiwan, I did the best on. I don't think I'd ever replicate the Taiwan performance again. But partly of Taiwan is I was able to create my own stadium effect statistics, figuring out of the 4 Taiwanese stadiums, which ones have more runs scored and how much, or how less. And I can't say a single word in Mandarin, but I figured out a way to go on the webpage in Mandarin, translate it to get the data I need.
Nice. That's very good.
If your goal is to win betting at sports, you're best off focusing on like the lowest volume minor leagues possible. So if you like baseball, minor league baseball, I've never messed around with it. That would be a good place to start. College baseball, Asian baseball. If you like football, obviously college football, Canadian football, I love, but sadly they haven't played since 2 years ago, and we'll see if they get their act together and have a season. Obviously, there's some factors of Canadian football, such as there's only 3 downs in a wider field. But, it's still a lot of the same analysis. Basketball, college basketball, you're better than NBA. But if you do NBA, player props are a better angle. That's kind of an area I've hit. But if you're focusing on the stuff that everybody's betting on, then you get enough liquidity in the market so the people who make their living betting on sports are betting on those markets shaping the lines. And I'm not one of these people, but there's people who say, I'm not going to bet on anything if I can't get at least $500 down on it. It's like, for example, a lot of these overnight baseball lines I bet, it'll say the limit's $300. I'm not approaching that. I don't make my living betting on sports. I make my living writing on it. I just happen to bet on sports and make something off it. But there's some people say, okay, $300 for an opener on MLB, I'm not going to do. But if you're betting baseball the day before, you're going to get a better line than the day of, unless you're really wrong all the time. Then that's another story. But for the most part this season, on most games, I've been beating the closing line, which means the market agrees with my projections. Like, for example, I got the Astros yesterday at minus 112. I don't know what they are today. I know they're not minus 112. I'll tell you that.
No, that's a fair point, because we actually talked about, so when we were talking before the show, I asked you, what's your picks, and then not only did you want to come on with today's picks, but you wanted to come on with tomorrow, and I was like, how do you feel about betting in advance? Of course, usually you get a lot better lines, but I always feel like you don't know the lineup. Sometimes, in my opinion, certain teams, there's a guy that's, if he's in the lineup or he's not in the lineup, or like certain guys get scratched or something happens. And maybe it's a mental thing, at least with me, and I'm sure other bettors might feel this way. So I was always curious about that.
There's definitely a fog of war. But that's like a universal fog of war unless you know somebody on the team that knows somebody. And I guess there's some people out there that do, but for the most part, for baseball, it's mainly going to depend on the pitching. I didn't know yesterday, for example, that Pablo Lopez of the Marlins was going to be stuck in Miami. So I was on Miami yesterday when they were, I think, plus 135, and they closed at plus 180. So what was even worse than losing the game was that it got completely beat pretty bad on the closing line. Obviously, I could have used a site that would have refunded the bet if I did listed pitchers only, but I didn't. So that's on me. And Shohei Ohtani also got stuck in traffic right before one of his starts. But for the most part, the pitchers, their body of work. Pitchers are hard to analyze because you only have a sample size right now of about 11 starts, which is better than what we had before. But, 11 starts is not as good as 60 games for a position player.
For sure.
And, of course, recent performance.
So Astros based on ESPN MGM's book, it's minus 121. So it's not a huge difference. There's a minor difference. So the minus 112 versus the minus 121, you're getting a little bit better odds.
That's 2 percentage points break even odds right there. Like if the house advantage is typically around 2 or 3%, theoretically, let's say I didn't know what I was doing. I turned something with a negative expectancy to a positive expectancy just in that small of a change.
No, definitely is intriguing. So with that being said, Kev, let's get ready for Killer Kevin Davis's best bets of the night. The show is yours, my friend.
All right. So obviously I mentioned the Pirates. Obviously they're not as good as the Dodgers, but the Dodgers lineup has actually overperformed this season, even though they're leading the league in runs, which is pretty good. The fact that they have some of these injuries is going to catch up to them. And JT Brubaker is a pretty decent pitcher. It isn't implausible that he could have a big night and then the Pirates quietly win by 1. Nationals Rays was originally on the over. I know here in New Jersey, I was able to get the over 6.5 at minus 155. That was a much better bet than the over 7.5. But now that I know Washington's lineup on the Washington Nationals money line, plus 215, YOLOing it. Rockies also on them tonight. They're not nearly that much worse than the Marlins. And, pitcher props, got a whole lot of pitcher prop action. That's some of my steez. It's hard to find a book where it's available, but if you can get Zach Davies over 2.5 strikeouts, minus 185, sure, he's awful. Sure, he's throwing barely any strikeouts. But 2.5 strikeouts is a pretty low watermark, and the Padres actually lead the league in team strikeouts per game. So even though they can hit the ball, when they don't hit the ball, they tend to strike out. John Lester, if you have the guts to do that, his strikeout total is at 3.5, minus 150. Houston Astros, Framber Valdez, you can get either 5.5 at close to even money or 4.5 over at minus 140. Last season he pitched more than 6 innings per start. He's got a relatively decent strikeout rate. Sure, the Red Sox are a bit more disciplined than most teams, but those are kind of low watermarks for him. So those are some of my killer bets of the night.
That's it. And right there, I'm about to follow it up with you. I'm a big strikeout prop guy. I circle the power arms every week on my calendar. There was about 7 guys since early April. Every time out, I'm always highlighting them. Now, because of recent changes and recent trends, I've had to mix it up a little bit. Without further ado, let's get to the Gambling Guineas best betting trends. Tonight, one, Shane Bieber under 8.5 Ks. The juice is a little high at minus 155. However, he has been Mr. Automatic, Beaver Fever. He's been terrible, honestly. Like, not even strikeout-wise. Aside from a 12 punch-out performance against the Tigers 2 starts ago, he has not eclipsed his over since that fateful night on Cinco de Mayo against the Kansas City Royals where he just imploded in the 5th inning. The guy was a walking double-digit strikeout total in the month of April. He has since faded. Even his actual pitching has been off. He's been getting hammered by teams like the Royals, the Mariners. No good. We're going to go with the under at 8.5. Price is a little high. Even against a Cardinals team that is coming on a 17-game straight stretch, lost 5 in a row. I think this is a slight under, but the thing is Bieber's got to prove it to me consistently before I could get back on the over Bieber fever trend. Next up, we got the Chicago
I'm going
White
to pick on that side. I think the Cardinals in 5 of the last 6 games have struck out 10 times. So
well,
could be a good slump buster for Bieber.
Well, yeah, they're striking out right around 8.5 times a game as a team. Next, we got the White Sox, the best first 5 team in baseball by a landslide. I did my write-up for them on jdfsports.com. Easily the best first 5. Carlos Rodon, he's looking like a Cy Young candidate early on this season. Easily the best pitcher on that team. Well, maybe next to Lance Lynn. He's got a sub-2 ERA. His strikeout per 9's over 13. Ridiculous. Now, I realize they're going against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's a powerful lineup. Those guys can really put some runs on the board. However, minus 142, that's a decent value in my opinion. A lot of times, if you've been following the White Sox this year, you're going to be very profitable, easily the best first 5 team. Let's not overcomplicate it because Robbie Ray, on the other hand, for Toronto, while he has looked like the pitcher that the Diamondbacks wished he was, it's still early on the sample size. His walks are tremendously better, only walked 14 batters through 58 innings this season. But he's still Robbie Ray. So let's get a bigger sample size before we write home about it. Lastly, my boy, my AL Cy Young pick, the guy I was going to go see tonight, one, Tyler Glasnow. It's got to be the haircut and over 7.5 Ks. The minus 126 value is pretty good. Glasnow has eclipsed 8 strikeouts in every single start other than 1 against Toronto since April 17th against the Yankees where he had 7. 8's the number to beat tonight. The one thing I don't like, you lose the opposing pitcher batting because you're in the AL park. So John Lester will probably pencil him in for 2 Ks. I don't like that. But what do I always say? I give the benefit of the doubt to the power arms. That is Tyler Glasnow. He goes in his last 8 starts, he's gone 6 through 7 innings each time, on average, and struck out 8.5 batters or 8.75 batters per start on average. Now, if that holds up, if that trend follows, he should be able to nip it right there, right around that 8K, right around that 8K total against a wishy-washy Nationals lineup. Your Honor, no objections. So as we wrap up here, always, we have our emerging player of the night, Mr. Killer Kevin Davis. Please do the honors. Who is your emerging player of the night?
I'm going to go with Framber Valdez as my emerging player of the night. Last year, and his kind of came out for the Astros. It's a consistent long inning pitcher, which is very important because their bullpen is a little vulnerable. Their line is really strong. So if they can get a player like that to pitch for more than 6 innings, give up only 2 or 3 earned runs with that lineup, even against the Red Sox, they should win. And, even if they don't win, his strikeout prop over is my angle on that game.
I love that. That's the true definition of emerged player. Not many people were thinking of Mr. Framber Valdez, but
I hope I'm saying his name right.
Framber? I don't know, man. I don't know.
We'll find out when I watch the broadcast. I mean, got some Bronx in me. I try and say all these baseball names correctly.
That's a good angle. Now, we have final thoughts. Nick, I know you've been chomping at the bit all night. Let's hear it.
Spider Tack. Josh Donaldson calling out Garrett Cole for using some illegal substances to doctor up the baseball. What a shocker. The Yankees are trying to cheat and get ahead. JohnnyVTV over here called it last week. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if something comes out where Garrett Cole was messing with the baseball. And then after MLB comes out and says, we're going to crack down on Rule 3.0 in the rule book, which states that you cannot have any foreign substance in your body. We're going to have the umpires checking the pitchers almost every inning. Garrett Cole goes out there last time and gets the loss. Didn't look too good. And, as we were doing this show tonight, the Yankees PR team was not prepared, and Garrett Cole was getting pestered with questions about cheating allegations. So we will see what comes of this. Probably not much, but, we'll see if teams start calling each other out now, because we know there's been cheating, and hopefully they do crack down on this. But Yankee fans, relax. I mean, it's like the end of the world right now. The Yankees are 31-29. There's only 5 teams in the AL that have a better win total than them. They're right there with the Jays as far as win percentages. The Jays are 30-27. The Yankees 31-29. The Yankees right now are in prime position still to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, I think they will be in the playoffs. They won't win the World Series because they're not built for October. They're built for April through September. And then you have other teams that can't make the playoffs that are built for October, like the Mets. So we'll see if the Mets get there. But Yankee fans, relax. I mean, what are you so stressed about? This team has never been under 500. The whole 2000s. They're going to make the playoffs. Okay, calm down. We'll see if the Red Sox can last. We'll see what the Blue Jays can do. You're not better than the Rays, but can you be better than the Cleveland Indians? Maybe. Can you beat the A's or the Astros in a wild card game? I think so. Depending on what Garrett Cole, if he figures out how to pitch with regular baseball. So Yankees fans, just calm down right now. You're talking about, we're gonna fire Aaron Boone. Yeah, you should fire Aaron Boone because he hasn't won a World Series yet with all this talent. But you're not gonna fire him in the middle of the season. What are they gonna do? They're gonna promote Phil Nevin. The guy's got an IV in his arm from COVID still. He's getting ejected from the games here. It's just, the Yankees are going to make a trade. They're going to get somebody. Won't be anybody good. But what more can you ask for from Cashman right now? He's scoundering the market in the offseason. He gets Kluber, who comes in and throws a no-hitter. I mean, you got to give kudos to Cashman on that. There's a reason why Cashman's been employed for over 20 years. If you fire Cashman, he's going to be hired right away by the Baltimore Orioles or something. So he's going to get a job. So, as somebody who hates the Yankees and cannot stand to see them win, I got to just tell Yankee fans to calm down, sit down, because the Yankees, unfortunately, they're still going to make the playoffs. They're just built for the regular season. They're going to outslug you. And I just never seen a fan base be so panicky about their team being 2 games over 500 in the month of June. It's mind-boggling to me, folks.
Does Garrett Cole throw at Donaldson the next time he sees him?
I would, definitely.
Probably not, because he doesn't want to have him on base.
That is true. Donaldson, him too, with the hair, with the blonde hair. So that'll do
Better
it
than
for
Jazz
us.
Chisholm.
If I could add
listen.
one thing real quick, Aaron Rodgers didn't show up to the first day of minicamp today, mandatory
Who
minicamp.
cares, bro? Who cares? Let the guy live, man. Let him live. Get that GM out of there, Gutenkost, however you say his name. But Kevin, we appreciate you so much for being on today. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at Boogie Down Picks on Twitter. You can also find me doing daily baseball content for the Action Network as well as Vegas Insider. So as you can see, that's all I do is baseball all the time. And then football happens and they do a college football.
Yeah.
We're getting you
college basketball.
Kevin's a tremendous Twitter. In 1 year, he went from like 60 followers to over 3,000. Just incredible.
Yeah, and I'm not even a hot chick. So if I was a hot chick, I'd have at least 10,000 right now. But I got to work with what I got.
So you can find me at _JohnnyVTV. You can find my guy over here over there. Sorry, at Nick_Durst and Twitterless Kyle. And on Instagram, you can find me at Gambling Guinea. You can find Nick at Nick's Food and Stuff, and you can find Kyle at the Kyle Donnelly. For all of us here at JohnnyVTV Live, thanks for taking the time, and we'll be back next week. Ciao, boys.